Good afternoon and welcome to Module 2 Basic Concepts of the Child and Adolescent Learners and Learning Principles. We are Group 6 and today we will be your presenter for this module. But before we begin, allow me to introduce the members of this group. I am the leader of this group, Rolion Samueli Grace Marie Arolion, together with my members Mark Alexis, Saba Mackenzie, Salamangka Aaron, Salvatera Erickson, Tabitha Gerald, Joanna Shermil, and Vitalis Brenold. These are the 7 contents of the module that today our group would be presenting. In this presentation, we would give an overview of the different topics and lessons included in this module. These are the objectives for our topic 1. We are to define UNESCO, UNICEF, WHO, and differentiate their similarities and differences. So, let's start with our first topic, definitions of child and adolescent learners, that would be discussed by me.
Ano nga ba ang UNESCO? Ang UNESCO ay ang United Nations Educational and Scientific Cultural Organization. Ayon sa UNESCO, ang definition ng bata ay nakabatay sa UNCRC o ang United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child na pinagtibay noong November 20, 1989. Ayon sa Article 1, ang bata o child ay sinumang tao na wala pang 18 years old, maliban na lamang kung ang batas ng isang bansa ay nagsasabing mas maaga silang itinuturing na nasa wastong gulang o pagiging adult. Sa madaling salita, kung ang isang tao ay nasa 17 years old pababa, siya ay tinuturing na bata ayon sa definition na ito. Ngunit, may ilang bansa na may ibang age of majority o edad kung kailan itinuturing na adulto ang isang tao. Yan ay halimbawa na lang sa Saudi Arabia. Ang age of majority nila ay 15 years old. Kaya doon, ang mga 14 years old pababa lamang ang itinuturing nilang bata. Samantala, ang adolescents o nagbibinata at nagdadalaga ay ang mga taong may edad na 10 to 19 years old. Ito yung yugto kung saan unting-unting lumilipat ang isang tao mula sa pagkabata patungo sa pagiging adulto. Ang UNICEF naman o United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. Ang UNICEF ay katulad lang din ng UNESCO na ginagamit din ang definition ng bata mula sa UNCRC. Para sa UNICEF, ang bata ay sinumang tao na wala pang 18 years old, maliban na lang kung iba ang itinakda ng batas ng isang bansa. Ang pangunahing tinatalakay ng UNICEF ay ang pagtataguyod, proteksyon, at pagpapatupad ng mga karapatan ng mga bata sa buong mundo. Sinasaklaw nito ang mga pangangailangan ng kabataan upang sila ay mabuhay, lumaki ng malusog, at makapag-aral. Ngunit, pagdating sa adolescence o pagdadalaga at pagbibinata, sinasabi ng UNICEF na mahirap itong bigyan ng eksaktong definisyon dahil wala pang iisang definition na tinatanggap ng buong mundo. Bakit nga ba? Dahil ang bawat bansa ay may sari-sariling pananaw, kultura at paniniwala na di naaayon sa ibang bansa. Sa kabila nito, ginagamit pa rin ng UNICEF ang edad ng 10 to 19 years old bilang saklaw ng adolescents. Ang WHO naman ay ang World Health Organization. Ayon naman sa WHO, ang bata ay nagre-range ang age 19 years old pababa, maliban na lang kung mas maagang itinuturing ng ibang bansa ang pagiging adulto. Gayunpaman, kapag ang isang tao ay nasa edad na 10 to 19 years old, siya ay tinatawag na adolescent. Para sa WHO, ang adolescence ay hindi lamang isang tiyak na edad, kundi isang phase o yugto ng buhay. Hindi lang edad ang tinitingnan ng WHO upang matukoy kung adolescent ang isang tao. Tinitingnan din ang physical na pag-unlad o maturity, pag-unlad ng pag-iisip, pagbuo ng critical thinking, at kakayahang maging independent sa emotional at social na aspeto ng buhay. Bakit mahalaga ito? Kailangan nating maunawaan na ang mga adolescent ay dumaraan sa maraming pagbabago. Kaya normal lamang na minsan ay maging emosyonal, sensitibo, naghahanap sila ng kanilang identidad. So, sa kabuuan, bagamat may kaunting pagkakaiba ang definition ng UNESCO, UNICEF at WHO, lahat sila ay nagkakasundo na ang adolescence ay isang mahalagang yugto ng paglipat mula sa pagkabata patungo sa pagiging adult. Ano ang pinagkaiba ng UNESCO, UNICEF at WHO? Ang UNESCO nakatuon sa legal na definition ng bata at adolescent, habang ang UNICEF naman ay ginagamit din ng legal na definition, ngunit binibigyang diin na mahirap eksaktong tukuyin ang adolescence. Habang ang WHO ay tinitingnan ang adolescence bilang isang yugto ng pag-unlad, hindi lang basta edad. At iyon ang mga nilalaman ng ating topic 1 for module 2. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Mark Alexis T. Romero, and right now I'm going to tackle topic 2, growth and development, nature or nurture. So for our objective, define nature and nurture, differentiate nativism and empiricism, understand that both nature and nurture work together in a person's growth and development. For many years, people have debated what influences human development the most. Some believe that genes and biology are the main factors, while others believe that the environment plays a more bigger role in human development and growth. That debate is called nativism versus empiricism. But before we move on to defining what is nature and nurture, I have a simple question for all of you. What do you think influences human development and growth the most? Nature or nurture? The answer is, at the end of the module, you will find out who contribute in human development and growth the most. So stay tuned and listen. What is nature? Nature refers to the traits that people inherited from their parents. According to nativism, abilities, behavior, and personality are mostly inborn. So pag sinabi nating nature, ito yung namamana natin sa ating mga magulang o ito na yung meron tayo simula pagkabata natin hanggang pagtanda. So for example, yung mga magulang mo ay matatangkad. So may posibilidad rin na ikaw ay maging matangkad dahil ito ay nasa lahi nyo or genes nyo na. Isa pang halimbawa, kunyari ang mga magulang mo ay taga-Amerika. Natural, ikaw ay magiging maputi sapagkat ang iyong mga magulang ay maputi rin. So pag sinabi nating nature, ito yung genes o namamana natin sa ating mga magulang at meron na tayo neto simula pagkabata tayo o pagkapanganak natin hanggang pagtanda natin. What is nurture? Nurture refers to the environmental factors and experiences that influence a person's growth and development. These are the things a person learns or experience after the birth. So pag sinabi nating nurture, ito yung kapaligiran natin o ito yung mga taong nakakasalamuha natin o nakakasama natin sa pang-araw-araw natin na pamumuhay. Sila yung humuhubog sa pagkatao natin bilang isang tao o bilang isang mamamayan. For example, ang ating mga magulang, ang bata ay hindi matututo ng magandang asal kung di siya tuturuan maging isang responsable at maging isang mabuting bata ng kanyang mga magulang. So ang keyword natin sa nurture ay ang environment at nakakasalamuha, karanasan natin sa pang-araw-araw. Nativism versus empiricism. So pag sinabi nating nativism, ito yung inborn o likas na sa ating mga tao na meron tayo. For example, ang talent and skills natin. Mapapayabong lang natin siya sa tulong ng empiricism. Kung wala ang empiricism, hindi natin to mapapayabong o hindi natin to mapapalawak. In conclusion, developmental psychologists believe that human development is the result of both nature and nurture. Genes provide the potential, while the environment help that potential grow. Therefore, success and development happen when natural abilities are supported by positive experiences and opportunities. So, ang sagot niyo kanina na what contribute the most, nature or nurture? Ang sagot ay either. Kasi we are naturally born with that. So mapapaganda o mapapayabong lang natin ito with the experiences that we have towards our environment. Or in the school, magiging matalino na tayo born. Pero mas magiging matalino tayo with the support of our teachers and with the good academic excellence and sa support ng ating family and encouragement with them. And that's all for topic 2. Thank you for listening. Sawadika and mabuhay!
Good day everyone, I'm Mackenzie P. Sabas at ngayon ay tatalakayin natin ang ikatlong topic sa Module 2 at ayon ay ang periods of development. Ngayon, pag-uusapan natin ang 4 na periods of development. Pero bago yon, ano nga ba ang periods of development? Ito ay ang development na pinagdadaanan ng tao sa iba't ibang yugto. At bawat yugto ay may sari-sariling katangian at paraan ng pagkatuto. Bilang future educators, mahalagang matutunan natin ang periods of development para alam natin kung paano i-approach ang bawat bata. Ang first stage ay ang tinatawag nating prenatal development. Ang prenatal development ay ang development na nangyayari sa sinapupunan ng isang ina. Sinasabi rin na dito nabubuo ang mahalagang body organs at body parts ng isang tao katulad ng heart, lungs, brains, arms, and legs. Meron tayong mga factors na maaaring makaapekto sa prenatal development. Una ay ang genes, pangalawa ay ang mother's age. Sinasabi na nakakaapekto ang edad ng ina dahil mas mataas ang risk kapag mas bata o higit na mas matanda sa 35 years old ang nanay kapag nabubuntis. Nakakaapekto rin ang nutrition and substance intake. Mahalagang healthy ang kinakain ng nanay kapag nagbubuntis siya para healthy rin ang development ng bata. Ngunit kapag nagsasubstance intake siya katulad ng drugs, sigarilyo at alak, maaaring magkaroon ng developmental problem. Next ay ang physical activity and emotional experience. Mahalagang tama lang ang pinaperform na activity ng mommy during pagbubuntis at napakahalaga rin ng emotional well-being niya dahil nakakaapekto rin ito sa development ng baby. And lastly, nakakaapekto din ang panganganak or labor and delivery. Sinasabi na ang prenatal development ang pinakamahalagang development dahil dito ang unang yugto ng pagbuo ng isang tao. Ang next stage ay ang tinatawag na infancy and toddlerhood or ang 0 to 3 years old stage. Sinasabi na ito ang may pinakamabilis na developmental stage. Ayon kay Piaget, ang sanggol at toddler ay nasa sensory motor stage na. Natututo na sila sa pamamagitan ng paghawak, pagtingin, pakikinig at pagkilos. Mas effective sa kanila yung actual na nangyayari or actual nilang nararanasan kesa yung ipinapaliwanag lang sa kanila. Sa infancy and toddlerhood, meron tayong tinatawag na circular reactions. Circular reaction means repeated physical action. Ito ay yung inuulit-ulit na nung bata yung action para makita niya yung cause and effect. Ang isang halimbawa nito ay yung inuulit-ulit ng bata na itapon or ihulog yung laruan niya para makita niya kung ano nga ba yung sanhi at bunga nito. Next is yung object permanence. Object permanence means understanding that object continue to exist even when out of sight. Ito yung kakayahan ng bata na maintindihan na kahit wala na yung isang bagay or hindi niya na nakikita, alam niya pa rin na nasa paligid ito. Ang best example nito ay yung kunwari itinago ng magulang yung laruan ng anak or itininop, hahanapin pa rin ng baby ito dahil alam niyang nasa paligid pa rin. Next ay ang deferred imitation. Deferred imitation means copying actions seen hours or days earlier. Ito ay yung panggagaya ng mga bata sa mga kilos ng tao sa paligid nila. Next is yung symbolic thought. Symbolic thought means using mental images and words to represent objects. Ang best example nito ay yung ginagamit ng bata yung dahon as pera kapag naglalaro sila dahil nga lumalawak na yung imagination nila. Pero kahit ganun, meron pa rin sila kanilang
nagsisimula
mga
na
cognitive
silang gumamit ng
limitation or lack
imagination
of
o
mental
lumalawak na yung
operation. Kahit
imagination nila.
mabilis na silang
Like for
mag-develop dito,
example,
meron pa
yung
rin silang
kahoy
mga
o
hindi
yung isang
kayang gawin
object
or
na
hindi
kung
kayang
this
tandaan.
cellphone, nagagaya nila or nagagamit
Next
nila
ay
yun
ang
as
deferred
cellphone.
imitation.
Kaya
Deferred
ginagamit nila siya
imitation
as
means
kunwari
copying actions
cellphone na
seen
nilalagay
hours
sa
or
tenga
days
or
earlier. Ito ay yung
pinang-pipicture.
panggagaya ng mga bata
Kahit
sa mga
ganun
kilos ng
nakalawak ang
tao sa paligid
imagination ng
nila.
isang
Next
toddler,
is yung
meron
symbolic
pa rin
thought.
silang
Symbolic
cognitive
thought means
limitation
using mental
kung
images
saan
and
may
words to
limitasyon pa rin
represent
yung
objects.
pag-iisip nila.
Ang best
Hindi pa
example
nila
nito
kayang
ay yung
gumawa ng
ginagamit
mga
ng bata yung
complicated
dahon as
mental
pera kapag
reasonings at
naglalaro
mabilis
sila
din silang
dahil nga
makaisip kaya
lumalawak
mas
na yung
kailangan
imagination
nila
nila.
ng
Pero kahit
paulit-ulit
ganun,
na
meron
gabay
pa rin
at
silang mga
concrete
cognitive
examples.
limitation. Next ay ang early childhood or ang 3 to 6 years old stage. Ito yung mabilis na pag-unlad ng pag-iisip at yung vocabulary ng bata. Lumalawak na yung kanilang imagination, ngunit meron pa ring limitasyon yung kanilang pag-iisip. Sa early childhood, meron tayong tinatawag na egocentrism. Egocentrism means difficulty of understanding others people's perspective. Ang egocentrism ay hindi pagiging mas makasarili. Ang ibig sabihin lang nito ay nahihirapan yung bata na unawain yung perspective ng ibang tao. Next is yung centration na tinatawag. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay focusing on only one noticeable feature of an object. So nakafocus lang sila doon sa kapansin-pansin na bagay. Like for example, merong dalawang baso, malaki at maliit. Parehas lang yung laman ng tubig na yon. Pero iniisip ng bata na mas maraming laman yung mas malaking baso dahil yun nga yung nanonotice nila ng mas mabilis. Next ay yung irreversibility. Irreversibility means inability to mentally reverse a sequence of steps. So, ang ibig sabihin nito ay nahihirapan yung bata na baliktarin yung proseso sa utak nila. Hindi pa nila na mauunawaan na ang isang bagay ay babalik din sa dati nitong anyo or sa original state niya. Next is yung animism. Animism means attributing lifelike qualities to inanimate objects. So sa animism, iniisip ng bata na may buhay o damdamin yung mga bagay na wala namang buhay. Like for example, sinasabi nilang masaya yung mga laruan nila kahit hindi naman talaga yun masaya or wala naman talaga siyang buhay. Or kapag umuulan, sinasabi nilang malungkot ang langit kahit hindi naman talaga. Next is yung transductive reasoning. Transductive reasoning means linking unrelated events because they happened at the same time. So sa transductive reasoning, inuugnay ng bata ang dalawang pangyayari kahit wala naman talaga itong koneksyon. For example, sasabihin nilang kaya umulan dahil umiyak sila. Kahit wala namang koneksyon, ay pinagkoconnect nila dahil sa stage na ito, meron silang transductive reasoning. Next stage at last stage ay yung tinatawag nating middle childhood or yung 6 to 11 years old. Dito, mas more logic na yung thinking ng bata at nag-i-improve na sila sa problem-solving skills. Mas lumalawak na rin yung social interaction nila sa ibang tao. Tama ba yung sabi ko? Next ay ang decentration. Decentration means kaya nang intindihin ng bata ang isang sitwasyon sa iba't ibang perspective. And next ay ang conservation. Sa conservation naman, naiintindihan niya na hindi nagbabago ang dami ng isang bagay kahit magbago ang itsura nito. Like for example, yung nasa malaking baso na tubig ay isinalin sa maliit na baso. Naiintindihan na ng bata na kahit isalin yon sa malaki o maliit, parehas pa rin yung laman ng tubig. Next is yung reversibility. Kung kanina may irreversibility, dito naiintindihan na ng bata na kaya niya nang baliktarin sa isip niya yung isang proseso. Halimbawa, kaya niya nang pagsama-samahin ng mga bahagi ng isang bagay at maaari niya na itong ibalik sa dati nitong pwesto or sa original state. Next ay ang classification or grouping items by shared traits. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay ang pag-uuri ng mga bagay-bagay ayon sa kanilang pagkakapare-pareho. Kaya na ng bata na iuri ang mga bagay-bagay ayon sa kulay, itsura, at laki nito. Next ay ang tinatawag na seriation. Seriation naman ay ang pag-aayos ng mga bagay-bagay ayon sa laki, haba, timbang o pagkakasunod-sunod. Kaya na nilang i-identify kung ano nga ba yung mas mahaba o mas matimbang sa mga bagay-bagay. Lagi nating tandaan na ang bawat stage ay may unique characteristics na makaka-impluwensya sa bata. Kung ano man yung tutunan nila sa stage na ito ay maaari nilang dalhin hanggang sa pagtanda nila. At ayun ang 4 na personal development ng isang tao. Thank you so much for listening.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening po sa mga nanonood yan, kung what time ka man nanonood. So topic po natin is process of development. Specifically po yung fifth stage niya po, which is called adolescence. So general po yung kino-cover nito is 11 to 12 years old or 18 to 20 years old. But experts do not agree on an exact age. So basically po, pwede siya pong maging 11 to 18, 12 to 18, 18 to 20 since wala po siyang specific na range. Pero I like to call this stage our teenage years. Bakit? Kasi dito po nangyayari yung pagbabago natin sa pag-iisip at pagbabago natin sa pagkakatawan natin. So as a topic na po tayo ng pagbabago, so simulan na po natin sa physical development. So sa period po ng physical development, at dito na po nagsisimula ang ating puberty o yung process ng sexual maturity. Pero besides sa sexual maturity, ano pang pwede mangyari sa katawan natin? Pwede tayong tumangkad, mag-develop ng body hair, maka-develop ng oily skin, and pero mostly, ang importante dito is yung maturation of reproductive organs. So, in basic sense, pwede na tayo mag-develop ng mga offsprings. Yung mga sign naman po nito sa babae is yung enlargement of breasts, dito nag-start na rin po yung menstrual cycle nila. At kung sa lalaki naman, manonotice niyo po yung pag-develop ng Adam's apple nyo, and pag-develop ng testis and scrotum. So, yun lang po sa physical development. Tatandaan lang po natin dito is capable na tayo ng reproduction. So since tapos na tayo sa physical development, let's dive naman sa cognitive development. Pero ano nga ba ang cognitive? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng cognitive? So yung cognitive po is it refers to our process of mental processing. So sa thinking or pag-iisip, problem solving, reasoning natin, memory, perception natin, or whatever na pwede nating conscious. So, sabi dito, mas lalo natin nade-develop yung pag-iisip natin sa adolescence. Pero, what kind of development? May ability ba? Yes, may ability. Which is yung next slide. So, last time I said po, pwede po tayo makadevelop ng ability or cognitive ability. Starting with ability to think about possibilities or hypothetical situation. So, nagbigay po ako ng example yan about going outdoors. Pero magbibigay po ako ng bagong example. Let's say gusto mo mag-build ng bagong bakery sa Muñoz. So, you think about the possibilities. You think about situations. Let's start with hypothetical situation. So, you think about sobrang dami nga palang baker sa Muñoz, like First Baker or whatever brand there is. So, you think about the possibilities na yung customer mo doon na lang pipiliin since mas malapit or something. And you think about the possibilities kung mag-grow ba yung business mo dahil sa reason na yun. Pwede ba siya mag-fail? Pwede ba siya mag-grow? Or whatever. Pero in real life situation, you mostly gonna analyze kung ano mangyayari. Let's say, nakita mo, makulimlim. So, you think about the possibility kung pwede ba umulan. So, yun lang. You think about the possibilities about situations. Yun lang po kasi yun eh. You think about the possibilities na pwede mangyari. So, yung susunod po natin na pwede ma-develop na cognitive ability is understanding of abstract concept. Pero keep in mind po, yung view po natin sa abstract concept is iba-iba or may different views po tayo sa kanila. And also, yung abstract concept is non-tangible o hindi natin siya nahahawakan. Katulad na lang ng freedom, love, and the meaning of life. Since last time I said, may iba-iba tayong view sa love. Yung pwedeng maging view natin sa love is conditional or unconditional. Whatever na pwede mong pag-isipan. Next po dyan is symbols for symbols. Yung example lang po dyan is algebraic variables. So, ano nga ba yun? Pwede yung maging x is equal to 1 and is equal to 1. or whatever na pwede maging concept sa math. So, yun lang po siya. So, sunod naman po natin is formal operational stage. Ito po ay naimbenta ni James Piaget. So, hopefully, na-discuss po siya ni Miss Sabas. So, ito po yung huling stage niya, which is called operational stage. So, dito po sinasabi is, pwede na tayo makagain ng mga adult-like logical thinking. But still, pwede tayo makagain ng mga emotional blind spot. So, yung key stage lang po dito is hypodeductive reasoning and professional thoughts. So, i-discuss ko po siya sa next slide. So, yung unang key stage po natin is called hypodeductive reasoning. Ito po ay pag-form ng hypothesis, testing ng ideas, and drawing logical conclusion. So, i-explain ko na lang po siya in simple terms. So, sa pag-observe po, dito natin i-identify ang isang phenomenon or isang problema na naglalak ng explanation. Let's say, bigla na lang mag-stop, mag-work yung cellphone mo mag-charge after mo sa isaksak sa isang outlet. Ba't hindi siya obvious? Sir, ba't hindi siya obvious? Hindi siya obvious since pwedeng sira yung outlet mo mismo, pwedeng sira yung cellphone mo, or pwedeng sira yung charger mo. So, dito naman, sa hypothesis, dito mo nahuhulaan. Dito mo nahuhulaan kung ano yung may sira. If sa tingin mo yung may sira is yung outlet na mismo, then, dito mo na gagamitin yung deduction. If yung outlet niyo po yung problema, then gumamit ako ng panibagong outlet, then gagana siya. So, tinest mo siya. Gagawin mo na siya. Hindi pa rin gumana. So, babalik tayo sa hypothesis. So, dito, pipiliut na rin ng problema. So, sa tingin mo, yung charger na yung may problema. Humanap pa ng bagong charger. Dito mo i-deduct. If bago yung charger ko ngayon, then gagana yung pag-charge ng cellphone ko. So, dito, itetest mo ulit. Hindi pa rin gumana. So, sa tingin mo, cellphone na yung may problema. Kasi yun na yung last na sinabi ko. So, dito, mag-deduct ulit. If cellphone ko na yung problema at nagpagawa ako, then gagana na siya after ko siyang ipagawa. So, itetest mo ulit. And then, hopefully, gumana na siya since wala na akong bagong explanation. So, explanation lang niya is, if mag-fail yung hypothesis, yung pag-test mo, o yung deduction mo, babalik tayo sa hypothesis hanggang sa mag-work yung problema natin or yung phenomenon natin. So, ganun lang po siya kadali. So, hopefully, medyo na-explain ko siyang mabuti. So, yung last stage po natin is called propositional thought. So, dito po, mag-evaluate po tayo ng logic kahit hindi natin nakikita yung concrete example. Example po niyan is, if all dogs are blue and Mac is a dog, then all dogs must be blue. So, magbibigay ako ng bagong example. If A is less than B and B is less than C, then A must be less than C. Bakit? Kasi, yung A mas less sa B. Yung B, mas less sa C. Yung A, mas less ba siya sa C? Yes! Obvious. So, yun lang po siya. So, evaluating the logic of a statement without needing a concrete example. So, yun lang po siya. And lastly po, syempre, hindi naman po matatapos yung adolescence natin without any issues. Or, hindi matatapos yung teenage years natin without any issues. So, unang-una po dyan is search for identity. Dito na po, sa teenage years po kasi natin, mostly, dito na natin kine-question yung ating sarili. Ano ba ako? At sino ba ako? So, coin po siya sa theory ni Erik Erikson, which is called psychological development. Specifically po, yung fifth stage niya po, which is called identity versus role confusion. So, ano po ibig sabihin ng theory na yun? So, yung theory po nun yung fifth stage po nun is saying, if successful mo managit yung sarili mo, is stable yung magiging identity mo. Let's say, na-discover mo, gusto mo maging teacher. So, tatahakin mo yung course na magiging teacher. If sakaling hindi mo siya manavigate, tatahakan ng course na hindi mo gusto. So, naglilibo siya sa lack of direction sa buhay natin. And naglalak po tayo ng mga decisions about our life. So, yun lang po yun. And susunod po nun is self-consciousness. Tied po siya sa egocentrism, since yung egocentrism po is naniniwala po tayo sa mga, may iba-iba't view yung mga tao sa atin. So, hopefully, medyo na-discuss na maganda ni Miss Tapas yan. So, like for example, nagpagupit ka at hindi mo siya nagustuhan since sobrang ikli niya. So, iisipin mo habang naglalakad ka. May nakasalubong ka, for example. Iisipin mo na, siguro yung iniisip sa akin ng tao na yun is Dora, since yun nga, maikli yung buhok mo. So, susunod po dyan is invulnerability or personal power. So, ibig sabihin lang po niyan is naglalak po tayo ng accountability sa action natin. Sa tingin po natin is invincible po tayo sa mga actions natin. Like for example, pumunta ka sa isang party, nag-inom ka. So, you think na wala siyang consequence. Even though na meron. So, yun lang po siya. Indecisiveness. So, mostly sa teenage years po natin is naglalak po tayo ng mga decision making. Nirarush po natin yung decision natin. Like for example, sa college course, mas pinili pong kunin yung dream college imbis po sa dream course. Para po sa akin, mali po yun. Mas pipiliin ko po yung dream course ko kaysa sa dream college ko po. So, yun lang po siya. So, search for identity. Pwede-question natin yung sarili natin na ano ba tayo or sino ba ako. Self-consciousness. Aware tayo na may iba't ibang views yung mga tao sa atin or sa paligid natin. Invulnerability or personal power. Dito po is naglalak po tayo ng accountability sa magiging actions natin. Indecisiveness. We lack proper decision making. So, yun lang po siya. So, yung susunod po natin sa process of development is early adulthood. So, nag-start po siya sa early 20s to mid-30s. So, basically, 20 to 35 years old. So, I like to call this stage our prime year since bata pa nga po tayo. Nag-start pa lang tayo ng prime physically and socially. Physically kasi, dito na nagpitik yung muscle mass natin at peak endurance, peak muscle mass. In general, mas maliksi po yung katawan natin sa stage ito. Socially kasi, dito po tayo nag-meet ng mga various people na nagbe-benefit yung connection natin. Like for example, teacher ka. You are going to meet people like principal, teacher in various parts na sa lugar like Maybaysia, like San Jose, nag-meet ka ng mga principal sa San Jose, sa Muñoz, or sa ano pa mang lugar. So, dito, nag-meet pa tayo ng bagong tao na nag-build ng connection natin. Starting careers. So, dito na tayo nag-start maging independent since tapos na po yung trabaho ng parents natin. Napagtapos na tayo, napag-aral na po tayo. So, it's our time to be independent. So, dito na po natin iisipin yung financial natin. Yung also income since mostly wala na magpo-provide sa'yo. So, ito na rin po yung time na pwede tayong mag-develop ng skills, mag-build ng work experience, and mag-build ng work reputations because syempre naman po, mas maghahanap pa po tayo na mas better na trabaho in the future. Since yun nga, yung first job po natin is parang starting pa lang siya. So, yun. Starting careers. So, yung last po na important concern sa stage na to is planning for the future or making important decision about education, work, or finance. So, dito, nag-decision ka na kung ano ba gusto mo sa buhay. Let's say, teacher ka, undergrad ka pa lang. Pipili ka kung mag-master ka pa ba or mag-i-invest ka na lang sa ibang mga bagay. Or, pwede rin, mag-i-invest ka while studying. So, mas maganda yon. Or, maisa pa, dito na rin, iniisip na lang natin kung sino ba yung makakasama natin sa buhay. Ano ba yung gusto ko? Ano ba yung pwede ko pang takayin? Gusto ko ba magtayo ng business? Or etc. So, basically, pinaplano na natin yung future natin para mas ma-better yung quality of life natin. So, yun lang po siya. So, yung susunod po dyan is yung formal thought. So, mas better po if ma-understand po natin po for pre-service teacher because yung stage po na to is recognizing the cognitive shift beyond formal operation. So, tinatawag po siyang formal, post-formal thought. So, itatakil po natin siya sa next slide for better understanding. So, ano nga ba ang post-formal thought? So, ang post-formal thought daw is characterized by the ability to embrace ambiguity or ibang interpretation ng ibang tao. So, ina-accept muna natin yung ibang interpretation ng mga tao. And also, accept contradiction. Kaya na natin i-accept yung mga objection ng mga ibang tao. Integrate subject emotion with object logic. So, dito, ginagamit na rin natin yung feeling natin as a valid thing. And lastly, recognize that truth is often relative and context dependent. So, ibig sabihin lang po niyan is, yung truth po is depende sa situation. So, yun lang po siya. So, it's about ability to understand ambiguity, contradiction, integrate subject emotion with object logic, and recognizing that truth is often relative and context dependent. So, yun lang po siya. So, may dalawang core pillars lang po yung post-formal thought. Una po is dialectical thinking. So, sinasabi lang po dito is a cognitive skills that embrace contradiction rather than just accepting multiple viewpoints. So, dialectical thinkers search for underlying truths in opposing ideas and merge them to create a higher and more holistic understanding. So, ibig sabihin lang po niyan is imbis na mag-accept po siya ng iba't ibang viewpoint, mina-merge niya po siya sa iisang idea. So, basically, let's say, for example, sa office niyo, sa trabaho niyo, yung office department is mas gusto magtrabaho sa work since mas gusto nila yung pressure. Yung IT department naman, mas gusto magtrabaho sa home kasi mas solitude, mas gusto nilang mag-isip sa solitude. So, yung decision po ng department yan is pag-mixin yung both ideas. So, imbis na kukuha lang ng isang idea, mina-merge sila. So, ang ending po niyan is Monday po is doon sila magtatrabaho sa office. And sa Tuesday naman po is mag-work sila sa home. So, ibig sabihin lang po nito is pinag-mix po yung idea imbis po na ina-accept yung multiple viewpoint. So, yun lang po yun. Yung core idea nito is two opposing things can be true at the same time. And their tension reveals a deeper truth. So, yun lang po siya. So, yung pangalawa o yung final core pillar po natin is called relativistic thinking, or the realization that knowledge and truth are not absolute. Instead, it acknowledges that different people can have valid yet completely different perspective based on their experiences. So, ibig sabihin lang po nito is, yung katotohanan or yung truth is nabe-base lang po sa perspective ng isang tao. Depende na lang po sa situation niya. For example, nakalahati mo lang yung quiz sa isang subject mo. Sa classmate mo, nakakamangha siya. Since, not only nababalanse mo yung work mo dahil isa kang working student, for example, nababalanse mo rin yung pag-study. Sa prof mo naman is medyo nakaka-disappoint. Since, yun nga, expected niya na lahat ng mga estudyante na is matataas since medyo simple lang yung course niya. So, yung core idea lang po nito is there are no single right answer. It depends on the situation. So, yun lang po. Yung summary po niya is, yung katotohanan is, depende na lang po sa context or sa perspective ng isang tao. So, that's it. So, hindi po ibig sabihin na adult na tayo or early adult na tayo is wala tayong cognitive limitation. So, meron po tayong dalawa. Yung unang-una po is experiential vulnerability. Or ibig sabihin po nito is gumagawa tayo ng mga major decision in real world which can increase the chance of mistake or changing the choice later. So, ibig sabihin lang po niyan is gumagawa tayo ng major decision na mahirap nang baguhin. Like for example, yung aking tatay, graduate po siya ng education. I don't know kung saan pong college, pero mas pinili niya lang po pagiging farmer. Since yun nga po, natakot po siya magturo. Sabi po ng lola ko, natakot po siya magturo. So, ang ending po, naging magsasaka na lang po siya. So, yun po, making major decision na medyo mahirap nang baguhin. Lalo na if medyo mas matanda na tayo. Susunod po dyan is pragmatic integration conflict. So, dito naman po, dito natin nag-struggle tayong i-balance ang ating dreams and ambition with real life responsibilities. Katulad lang ng passion versus or over practicality. Let's say yung tunay na pangarap mo pala is maging macho dancer. Ano mas pipiliin mo? Mas pipiliin mo bang i-pursue yung practicality since let's say teacher ka and na-realize mo na gusto mo pala mag-macho dancer. Na-realize mo yung dream mo na maging macho dancer. So, yun. Dito, na-realize natin na mahirap balansehin siya. So, yun lang po siya. So, ang susunod po sa early adulthood is middle adulthood. So, yung stage po nito is mostly kino-cover ang late 30s to mid-60s. So, basically, 36 to 65 years old. So, ano nga ba nangyayari sa stage? Unang-una is peak career productivity and professional expertise. So, dito sa stage na to, dito na natin na-experience yung highest sa job natin. Highest peak o yung prime na pagtrabaho natin. Halos lahat ng pwedeng malaman sa trabaho natin is alam mo na. Like for example, if educator ka or teacher, alam mo na kung anong gagamitin yung study method sa mga students mo, anong lesson plan yung gagamitin mo sa kanila, and pwede ka rin makapagbigay ng tips sa mga bagong-bagong teacher na kapapasok lang sa company nyo. Yung next po yan is physical signs of aging and becoming more noticeable change. So, yun nga po, physical signs of aging becomes more noticeable po. Like for example, yung gray hair, reduce ng energy, slower metabolism, or generally, nagkaka-wrinkles na tayo sa ating mga katawan. Mostly sa mukha. So, yun. Nakikita mo na tumataba ka. Medyo mas pagod ka na, unlike nung prime years mo. And nagkaka-gray hair ka na rin. And not only that, sa mga lalaki, mostly, yung ibang mga lalaki is nakakalbo. So, yun po. So, ang susunod po dun is focus on problem solving. So, mostly sa middle age ng adulthood is ginagamit na natin yung ating mga kaalaman sa pagsosolve ng mga work-related problems. Like, for example, may issue sa faculty nyo. Alam mo na yung gagawin mo since, yun nga, you went to trial and error and na-experience mo rin siya nung prime years mo. So, yun, ginagamit mo experience mo, knowledge mo, or expertise mo sa mga work-related problems. And lastly, ang pinaka-importante is maintaining long-term family and relationship. So dito, mostly priorities na lang natin yung pag-support natin sa anak natin if ever meron na. So hopefully meron na. At hindi man, pinofocus mo na lang yung pag-retire mo or sa pagtulong sa mga kapatid mo or sa parents mo. So, Yan. So, mostly pinaprioritize natin yung family natin, pag-raise ng children, and if grandparents na tayo is sinusupport natin yung ating grandparents. Also, ginagamit rin po natin yung mga experience on what decision we will make, especially sa ating mga long-term relationship para hindi siya masyadong maruben. So, yun lang po siya. So, yung lastly po sa process of development, yung pinaka-last po natin is late adulthood. Nagbibigin po sa age 60 or above. And mostly associated siya sa retirement. So, I like to call this retirement stage since mostly na-experience mo na lahat ng pwede pang ma-experience sa life. Na-experience mo mabigo, na-experience mo maging successful, na-experience mo magbigay ng advice, na-experience mo halos lahat ng pwedeng ma-experience sa life. So, yun. So, retirement. Marami nang dito nag-retire sa mga trabaho nila. Let's say, teacher ka. Nag-retire ka na. Pero sa Pilipinas, yung optional retirement is at 60 with at least 15 years of service. Pero nakakalungkot lang po sa Pilipinas is may nakikita pa rin akong mga matatanda na nagtatrabaho or nagtitinda ng mga ano-anong mga bagay dun sa daan. This is nakakalungkot po isipin. Since retirement is a privilege po, especially if it came from a poor family. Now, susunod po nun is staying active. So, mostly, tinatry po na natin mag-create ng mga hobbies para po magstay tayo maging healthy. Para hindi tayo masyado magkasakit. So, mostly activity niyan is Zumba. Or any light exercise na pwede natin gawin. Para maiwasan natin yung mga physical and sakit mostly. So, yun lang po siya. So, yung susunod po dun is physical changes. So, dito po, medyo nanonotice na natin yung sa ating sarili. Nanonotice na natin na humihina na tayo. Mabilis na tayong mapagod. Na unlike before, kaya mong mag-move ng mga furniture katulad ng mga lamesa mo, upuan, and yung bedroom mo. Ngayon, itatry mo, medyo nakakapagod. Hirap ka sa paghinga. Hirap ka sa pagbuhat nito since yun nga, tumatanda na tayo. And not only that, medyo nanonotice na rin yung physical appearance mo. Na nagbo-bald ka, nag-wrinkle yung mga mukha mo and yung mga skin mo. Susunod po dyan is yung degenerative illness or increased chance of degenerative illness. So dito po is may ma-acquire na po tayo ng mga disease na ma-acquire natin sa pagtanda katulad ng mga high blood sugar, ganun. High blood, yun. And yun, increase na mga illness na pwede natin ma-acquire sa pagtanda natin. So, yun lang po yung topic ko. If may question po regarding sa adolescence to late adulthood, kindly PM lang po sa akin sa Facebook. Mabilis naman po ako mag-reply. Kahit anong oras mo, re-reply ako kahit alas 3 pa ng maga yan. So, yun po. So, thank you for listening and thank you for being part of your learning experience. So, yun lang po. Salamat.
So what is developmental task theory? Developmental task theory states that individuals encounter specific tasks at different stages of life that they are expected to accomplish for healthy development and successful adjustment to society. Good day, everyone. Have you ever noticed that people are expected to do different things depending on their age? A baby is expected to learn how to walk. A child is expected to learn how to read. And adolescents are expected to become more responsible. This is the main idea behind Haviger's developmental task theory. Today, we will explore what is development tasks are, where they came from, and why understanding them is important, especially for us as future educators. So who is Robert James Havigers? Robert James Havigers developed one of the most organized and extensive frameworks explaining the developmental tasks individuals encounter throughout their lives. He is an American educator and developmental psychologist. proposed the developmental task theory focused on human growth and development. Havigers believe that development is not random. Every stage of life has expectations and challenges that individuals needs to overcome to become well-adjusted members of the society. For example, just as students progress from elementary schools to high school, people also progress through developmental stages with corresponding tasks. Robert Havigers was an educator and developmental psychologist who wanted to understand how people develop throughout their lives. He believed that growth happens through stages, and each stage comes with important tasks that people needs to accomplish. These tasks help individuals to adapt society and prepare them for future responsibilities. So what is developmental task? Ayon kay Eulendorf 2004 defined developmental tasks as tasks which a person wants and needs to solve at particular periods of development. It is combination of one's need, societal requirement. Developmental tasks are age-related expectations, personal needs, social expectations, and skills and responsibilities. A developmental task is something a person expected to learn or accomplish at a particular stage of life. These tasks arise because of both individual needs and societal demands. For example, developmental tasks from infancy to learning to walk, childhood to learning to read, adolescence to forming identity, adulthood to becoming independent. According to Eulendorf, developmental tasks are tasks that people both want and needs to accomplish during certain periods of development. In simpler terms, these are age-appropriate skills, responsibilities, or behaviors that society expects us to learn. For example, children learn to read, while adolescents begin developing their identity and independence. So what is Havigers' main proposition? Successfully mastering developmental tasks leads to personal pride, satisfaction, and social approval, while failure may result in unhappiness, societal disapproval. So success leads to pride, satisfaction, confidence, and social approval. When we succeed, we have this feeling of fulfillment boost to move us forward. However, when we fail, we feel unhappiness, difficulty in adjustment, and social disapproval. Havigers believe that the successful completion of developmental tasks promotes positive development, whereas unresolved tasks may create challenges later in life. One of Havigers' most important ideas is that success brings positive outcomes. When individuals master developmental tasks, they often feel proud, satisfied, and accepted by others. However, when these tasks are not accomplished, individuals may experience frustrations and difficulties adjusting to future responsibilities. Success influences future success. Success or failure in current developmental tasks directly affects an individual's ability to accomplish tasks in later stages of life. For instance, yung mga bagay na ginawa natin sa present ay connected o makaka-apekto sa magiging future natin. Current stage to future stage. Success builds confidence, facilitates future adjustments. Failure leads to creates obstacles, makes future tasks more difficult. Development is interconnected. What people learn today influences how they cope with tomorrow's challenges. For example, a child who learns responsibility may become a dependable adolescent and responsible adult. Havigers emphasize that development is continuous. The experiences we have today influence our future. For example, a child who learns discipline and responsibility is more likely to handle adult responsibilities successfully. In this way, developmental tasks serve as stepping stones throughout our lives. So what are the sources of developmental tasks? Havigers categorize developmental tasks into three primary sources. We have biological, influential, psychological influences, and social influences. So we have three primary sources. We have biological influences, psychological influences, social influences. These three social explains why developmental tasks emerge and why individuals are expected to acquire different skills and behaviors throughout their lives. So according to Havigers, developmental tasks do not appear by chance. They arise from three major influences. our biological growth, our psychological development, and expectations of society. So, what is biological influences? Biological influences are developmental tasks rooted in innate physical capabilities that remain largely uniform across cultures. These are the tasks arising from physical maturation. For example, learning to walk, holding crayons, buttoning clothes, tying shoelaces, and using utensils. As the body matures, individuals naturally develop the ability to perform increasingly complex physical tasks. Teachers should consider learners' physical readiness before introducing certain activities. So, biological influences refers to tasks that results from natural physical growth. For instance, toddlers learn to walk because their muscles and coordination gradually develops. Similarly, young children learn to hold crayons and tie their shoelaces as their fine motor skills improves. These physical developments prepare them for future learning experiences. Psychological influences. Psychological influences are developmental tasks arising from an individual's evolving mind and personality. They involve values, goals, personality, identity, and emotional development. For example, identity information during adolescence. As people mature psychologically, they begin to understand themselves better, establish personal values, and define their goals. So, sa ating educational applications, teachers should support learners' emotional and psychological development alongside academics. Psychological influences focuses on changes in the minds and personality. Adolescents often begin asking questions such as, who am I? And what do I want to become? These questions are part of the identity information, an important developmental task during adolescence. At para naman sa ating last primary sources, we have social influences. Social influences are developmental tasks dictated by the cultural standards and expectations of the society. So, for example, sharing with others, following rules, financial independence, household responsibilities. In Filipino context, many Filipino adolescents are expected to help with the chores, care for younger siblings, and assist in household management. Societies teach individual how to fulfill expected social roles. Although these expectations may vary across cultures, social influences come from the expectations of the communities in which we live. In the Philippines, many adolescents help care for younger siblings and participate in household responsibilities. In other countries, teenagers may be encouraged to work part-time jobs. This demonstrates how culture influences developmental tasks. Para naman sa ating educational application, in education, developmental tasks correspond to learning competencies and guide teachers in identifying appropriate learning objectives based on student readiness. So, teachers should match instructions with readiness, consider developmental stages, provide each appropriate experiences, and set realistic expectations. Understanding developmental tasks helps educators determine what students are capable of learning and when instruction is most effective. This theory has important implications for teaching. Developmental tasks helps teachers identify what learners are ready to learn, rather than expecting all students to learn the same way at the same time. Teachers should align instructions with developmental task readiness. So, bakit nga bang mas mahalagang maintindihan natin ang mga teoryang ito? Understanding developmental tasks allows educators to identify appropriate learning objectives and time instructions to match learners' readiness. Para sa ating mga future teachers, maaari nilang i-recognize ang learners' readiness, design appropriate instructions, support holistic development, and promote student success. Effective teaching is not simply delivering content. It involves understanding learners' developmental needs and guiding them through age-appropriate experiences. As future teachers, understanding developmental tasks allows us to teach more effectively. It reminds us that students are not just expected to memorize information. They are individuals growing physically, psychologically, and socially. By recognizing their readiness, we can provide the right support at the right time. So, Haviger's developmental task theory emphasizes that successful human development depends on accomplishing age-appropriate tasks. influenced by biological, psychological, and social factors, with education playing a vital role in supporting these tasks. To conclude, Haviggers teaches us that development occurs through a series of tasks that individuals encounters throughout their lives. These tasks arise from our physical growth, psychological development, and social expectations. By successfully accomplishing them, prepares individual for future responsibilities and contributes to healthy adjustment. As future educators, our role is to recognize learner readiness and create meaningful learning experiences that support the developmental journey of every child. Because ultimately, teaching is not only about imparting knowledge, it is about helping learners become capable, competent, and responsible individuals. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Ivan Gerald Tavita from Bachelor of Elementary Education, Block 1-2, and I will be your teacher for this lesson entitled Domains of Development. But before we proceed to our discussion, let us first identify the objectives. Identify what are the major domains of human development, differentiate the three major domains of human development, give an examples on each domain and development, and lastly, identify the purpose of each domain. So let us start our discussion. So in this presentation, we will discuss the major domains of human development that tackles the different aspects of growth and change in different areas. It is important to us to study this domain, especially for us students under the Department of Early Childhood and Elementary Education, because we are the ones that will guide the children on their development in each areas that will determine their behavior, cognitive skills, success, and their excellence in all things, especially on the four corners of the classroom. So first, we will discuss the biological domain. So the biological or physical domain is the development of our biological traits that we use or just simply our body. So this includes the development of our height and weight, our organs, sexual traits that occurs on puberty stage, our motor skills like running, jumping, and playing outside, etc. Or in short, our biological development is just simply our body. For example, for this development is when a child has a weak physical body and is sick. He can perform several physical activities. So, to help him develop his physical domain or traits, you can implement a daily exercise before every class discussion begins so that their body develops and becomes strong and capable to fight diseases. The biological domain or biological development is the most affected by the nutrition, amount, and quality of sleep, exercises, etc. among the three domains. So this means that our biological or physical trait may not be developed well because of our lack of nutrition, low amount, and bad quality of sleep that may cause our body to become sick and hinders the development. Next is our cognitive domain. So cognitive domain is the development of intellectual and cognitive skills of an individual. So their critical thinking, problem solving, analyzing skills, and other cognitive skills that an individual needs. So in simple terms, the development just means the development of your cognitive and intellectual skills and mental health that you use in life, or just simply what your brains do. For example, when you have a student that can't read or analyze information, they lack of cognitive development, and you can help them by teaching them how to read and comprehend what information is given. Also, we have a current issue where plenty of students in high school cannot comprehend or their lack of reading comprehension. That is an example of undeveloped cognitive domain. So like the physical domain, cognitive domain is also affected by nutrition, amount and quality of sleep, exercise, etc. This is because the brain is part of our biological body, meaning having a weak body or lack of nutrition, amount and quality of sleep, and doesn't have an exercise our brain will not function effectively. That hinders the development, resulting to undeveloped cognitive skills. And last is the socio-emotional domain. An example or a sample problem in socio-emotional domain is when a person is shy or have a poor communication skills. When a person have difficulties on expressing his or her emotion. To help them develop their socio-emotional skills, we can talk to them and start introducing them to our friends little by little and practice them in expressing their emotions and opinions. So this may help them to develop their social skills and in expressing their thoughts and emotion. So the social emotional domain is the development of our understanding of our emotion and moral and relationship with our friends or in our society. This is also affected by nutrition, quality and amount of sleep, and etc. Why? Because like the cognitive domain, the brain is also responsible on expressing our emotions and thoughts that we need in socializing to build our relationship with others. So remember, the major domains of human development tackles the different aspects of growth and change in different areas. So we have three major domains, which is the biological domains or our physical development, cognitive domain, which is our cognitive or intellectual aspects of development, and last one is the socio-emotional domain, which is the growth of our understanding of our emotion and the development of our relationship with others. So for the summary, these major domains are important for us to learn, especially to our future educators who will nurture, shape, guide, and help learners to develop their skills, behavior, and talents that they need in the future. These domains are interconnected, so meaning they doesn't work separately. In order for an individual to function and develop these domains, they need to work in harmony. One domain will not develop without the other. Example is the biological domain. If our cognitive domain doesn't, it will not work if our biological domain is doesn't develop. So therefore, as future educators, we have to study this topic for us to be an effective teacher who will help shape and nurture our students on their development, not just in cognitive but in all domains of human development.
So, good day everyone. My name is Joanna Tremiel M. Tumundong, and I'm going to discuss Chapter 6, Context and Development. Hope you will listen well. So, firstly, we're going to define the term context. So, what is context? So, context refers to the environment, situation, experiences, and people that surround an individual. These factors can influence how a person behaves, grows, learns, and develops. Next, we're going to define development. So, what is development? Development refers to the changes that occur in a person throughout life. These changes may be physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and behavioral. So, according to the module, development does not occur in a vacuum. It is continuously shaped by overlapping environmental, social, and cultural contexts. This means that development does not happen in isolation or by itself. Human development is influenced by different contexts that are interconnected and sometimes overlap with one another. So, this is an example of development. A student's behavior at school may be influenced by what happens at home. Likewise, the values learned from the family may affect how a student interacts with friends and teachers. This shows that different contexts work together in influencing development. So, two well known series who explain the relationship between context and development are Lev Semenov, Vygotsky, and Yuri Bronfenbrenner. So our first theory is Lev Semenov Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of development. He asserts that social interaction are the primary driver of learning. He argued that to truly understand an individual's cognitive growth, one must examine the social, cultural, and historical context from which their thinking emerged. He believed that learning happens through social interaction. According to him, children learn best when they interact with parents, teachers, peers, and other people around them. So, an example of his theory is, for example, when a teacher guides a student in solving a difficult problem, the student learns through interaction. So our next theory is Yuri Bronfenbrenner's bioecological systems theory. He explains that development through a series of interlocking environmental systems. He noted that systems even distant from the child, where the child has no direct presence, can still drastically alter their development outcomes. Some factors directly affect a person, while others influence them indirectly. For instance, a child's family directly affects their development while larger social factors such as community resources or policies may influence them indirectly. An example of Yuri Bronfenbrenner's bioecological system is a child's parents directly influence the child. However, the parent's workplace may indirectly affect the child because the parent's work conditions can influence family at home. So this is an example of indirect influence. So why is this topic important for PSTs or pre-service teachers? So this topic is important for pre-service teachers because mastering context is vital. As future educators, it is important for us to understand that every learner comes from different backgrounds. Students have different experiences, family situations, cultures, and learning opportunities. By understanding these differences, teachers can better understand their learners and provide the support they need. Instead of making a quick judgment, teachers should consider the factors that may influence a student's learning and behavior. So, to conclude our discussion, development is influenced by many interconnected factors, including environmental factor, social factor, and cultural factor. The theories of Vygotsky and Bronfenbrenner helps us understand how these factors shape learning and development. As future teachers, understanding context allows us to better support our learners and create more meaningful learning experience. Again, my name is Joanna Chimel M. Tamandong. That is all. Thank you.
Good day to all of us. I, Brenold Kenneth C. Vitalis, introducing development and pedagogy, theory and research. Topic 7. So, welcome to everyone. I hope that all of you are all ears, so all of us can learn. Now, let's not take this long. Let's cut the chase, everyone. For our first question, what is development and pedagogy for? Developmental theories and research, or pedagogy, help teachers to understand how students learn, think, and behave. These guide teachers in choosing effective teaching strategies and creating meaningful learning experiences. For an example, a grade 1 teacher uses games and pictures. Why? Because young children learn better through concrete experiences than abstract explanation. So, in short, it helps teachers to understand learners, support evidence based decisions, improve classroom instructions, and increase student success. For another idea, we all know what development is, but what about pedagogy? Well, pedagogy is the theory and practice of teaching and learning. For another question, why theory and research matter? Theories and research provide evidence about how students develop. Instead of relying on guesswork, teachers can make informed decisions and improve learning outcomes. For an example, Research shows that students learn more when they actively participate. Therefore, teachers include discussions and group activities instead of only lectures. So again, why does it matter? It helps teachers to understand student needs, improve lessons planning, support classroom management, and encourage effective teaching strategies. Next part is theory, hypothesis, and methodology. So the first one is theory. A theory is an organized explanation of how learning and development occur. It helps teachers to understand student behavior, thinking process, and learning needs. For example, Piaget's cognitive development theory explains that children learn differently at their different stages of development. The second one, hypothesis. A hypothesis is a prediction or assumption that researchers test to determine whether it is supported by evidence. For example, students who participate in group activities will perform better than students who only listens to lectures. And the last one, methodology. Methodology refers to the procedure and methods that researchers use to collect, analyze, and interpret data. Integrating theory and practice from research to real classrooms. Research becomes valuable when teachers apply it in actual teaching situations. Like a teacher learns from research that students learn better through active participation. So instead of only lecturing, the teacher includes group discussions, role playing, and hands on activities to increase engagement and understanding. Let us not also forget integrating means combining or connecting two things so they can work together effectively. In education, it means connecting developmental theories and research with actual classroom teaching practices. Alright, here we go. I want you all to listen carefully since this is one of the main idea in this topic, contributions within specific subject areas. When developmental research help teachers to understand what students can learn and how they learn best at different stages of development. This allows teachers to choose activities and teaching methods to match students' needs and abilities, like for specific subject, mathematics, cognitive domain. Students understand concrete concepts better than abstract ideas. So, for example, students use friction strips or pizza models before solving fraction problems on paper. The next one is language and literacy, which is cognitive and social domains. Language develops through interaction and communication. So, storytelling, role playing, and peer reading help improve vocabulary, comprehension, and communication skills. Next is physical education and arts, which is biological domain. Activities should match students' physical development. Younger children practice basic movements, while older students practice in organized spurts. Now, the second main idea in this topic, contributions across different subject areas. Alright, hope that you all listen carefully. Research helps teachers create learning experience that supports students academically, socially, and emotionally. So the number one is supportive learning environment. Students learn best in safe and encouraging classrooms. So creating a reading corners, science stations, and collaborative learning spaces will do. Number two, Timing the curriculum. Learning activities should match students' developmental readiness. For example, teaching leadership, responsibility, and decision-making project during adolescence when students are developing greater independence and social awareness. So at last, number three, holistic student support. According to Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory, learning is influenced by family, school, community, and society. So the main idea, student performance is not determined by intelligence alone. A student struggling academically may be experiencing family stress rather than a lack of ability. So here are some factors affecting the student's learning: family situation, emotional well-being, relationships, and economic conditions. So everyone, after all that we have discussed together, I hope that all of you learned something from me, or at least. And now here we are, at the last part of this presentation. Key takeaway for pre-service teachers. Here's the thought. Teach the learner, not just the lesson. Effective teaching happens when instruction matches students' developmental, cognitive, social, and emotional needs. Understanding the learner is just as important as understanding the lesson. Remember that. So when the teachers consider the whole child, they can create a more inclusive, supportive, and effective learning environment. Teaching is not only about delivering lessons and covering the curriculum. Effective teachers recognize that students learn differently because they have unique developmental, social, emotional, and environmental experiences. When the teachers understand these differences, they can adapt their teaching strategies, provide appropriate support, and create learning experiences that meet students' needs. So, for future teachers, this is what you should remember. Know your learners, use research-based strategies, create supportive classrooms, consider the whole child, connect theory to practice. Okay, so that's all, everyone. Thank you for listening. That's all for now. Thank you and goodbye.